just imagine you have next to your eyes a television channel selector. Okay? And you set the selector on channel 1. And you see woman, man, old, young, thin, fat, dark, light. You see the physical beings. You see physical entities. You see endomorphs, ectomorphs, and mesomorphs. You're a scientist. If you are full of lust, you would be on this channel. It's a channel in which you would see other bodies as whether or not they would fulfill your fantasies. So you would see everybody as bodies, and you would see there's a potential, there's a competitor, and that's irrelevant. And you would see everybody as one of those three. And that's the physical plane. That's what you would see. Just channel 1. If you look at me, you see a 51-year-old bald man, Caucasian. And that's what you get on channel 1. Probably irrelevant. Flip to channel 2, Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. Now you see happy and sad. You see seeker. You see responsible, laid back. All the social roles. You see responsible teacher. You see judge. You see politician. You see mother. You see child. You see all of the psychological, social dimensions, channel 2. If you're in psychotherapy, this is the real channel. Nothing else is real. Now, most of our cards of identity are on those 2 channels. Channel 2 is our storyline. Channel 2 is our psychological storyline, for the most part. It's the world turns. That's what channel 2 is. Where am I going? Where did I come from? Will I make it? I'm lousing it up. If I can only get over this, that's all channel 2. Channel 2, I'm a warm, affable, intelligent, charming teacher. Channel 3 is what we call the New Age channel. Scorpio. In channel 3, there are only 12 of us. Channel 3 is also our mythic channel. It's the archetypes. It's the, like I am the Buddha giving the sermon in the beer park. The room is filled with earth mothers and seekers after the Holy Grail. We all have these very big mythic roles also, besides our more paltry psychological selves. We all have bigger games we're playing. And the larger whoop and woof of things. Now notice about these first 3 channels that they are all what you might call matrices of individual differences. They're ways we can peg each other. Channel 3, I'm an Aries. So if you go home and somebody said, who did you hear this weekend? You can say, I heard a 51-year-old bald Caucasian man, warm, charming, affable teacher, Aries. Then they know, and you sort of, you really notice it in the astral plane, where they say, what are you? I'm an Aries. Right, of course. And now that explains everything. And each plane up explains more. It actually does. It explains. It's a system, but it's a system, it's a matrix of individual differences in which you're different from you, from you, from you, from me. And we can peg each other. It's a world of individual differences. Channel 4. Now you look into the eyes of another being and you see another being just like you looking back at you. Are you in there? are? Oh. I'm in here. How did you get into that one? And what you see at that moment is another awareness just like you, but packaged differently. And you see channels 1, 2, and 3 as packaging. And this channel 4, that entity, is in Christianity, it's called the soul. So the eyes are the windows of the soul. So you see another soul just like you, but who's having an entirely different set of life experiences because they're packaged differently. And you see how much the package affects what their experience is all about. The package includes all the desires, all the fears, all the hopes, all the social perceptions. So if you and I are meeting on channel 4, see, if we're meeting on channel 1, we're meeting in Snowmass at Windstar in a room. If we're meeting on channel 4, we're just these souls who happen to be sharing a moment wondering what we're doing on Earth, comparing notes. And the time and space of this is just somewhat incidental to the forms we happen to be meeting in at this moment. You flip to channel 5, it's like two mirrors facing each other. You see yourself looking at yourself, because in channel 5 there's only one of us. That's Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. It's not one plus Dorothy. One plus Pete, it's just one. So from channel 5, we are one in drag, or we are one at play. I mean, if you were the one in channel 5, well, what'll I do? You wouldn't say today, because you're not in today there, but you'd say, well, what'll I do? I think I'll become the many. Like, I think I'll play hide and seek. Then you become the many, and then you bring your awareness down and you go into a little one of it. I think I'll go into some of it. And then you look out at the rest and you say, ooh, God, it's scary. And you see others as them, and then you get all scared and you say, okay, all you and free, and you come back into the one. Whew, that was heavy. I don't think I'll play that one again. So from channel 5, we are the one at play. And just to keep the Buddhists happy, we flip to channel 6, where you disappear, I disappear, the channel selected disappears, none of it is, was. It's all void. Okay, now we have a system to play with. Now when I talk about you being born and going into somebody training, the somebody training you specifically went into was primarily channels 1 and 2. And the anxiety that was attendant to the way in which you started to become somebody. Let me point out, when you're born, you're not busy being separate. It's all one thing to you. It's all one undifferentiated thing. And then something along the way comes along, and you start to see that you aren't all of it. Now, I don't know. I have a suspicion that my critical moment was when I bit my mother's breast. And she said, hey, that's not yours. That's mine. You know? She pushed me away. There was something that happened where suddenly I had a sense that I did something that I fell out of grace. I was no longer at home in the universe. I was a separate entity that felt a yearning to get back. I suck, I eat, I grab, I want, I try to incorporate, I try to come back into the one. I am now a separate entity. I learned separateness somewhere along the way. I bought into my separateness. And the emotional loading with which you do that means that you get very, very concerned about who you are, your identity. And in order to be functional in the world, to be as a separate entity, to survive, because you begin to feel there's this vast power around you, and you experience impotence or inadequacy or whatever the roots of human neuroses are. You develop a sense of separateness, and there is this vastness, and you're always trying to make it all right to come back in, whether you come back in through eating, through collecting, through your eyes, drawing in, through all of achievements, through sexuality, always trying to come back into the one, into the unity, into the feeling of being in the Tao, in the harmony of things, in the way of things, instead of being separate. And the most powerful vehicle you have on Channel 2 for developing your separateness and your computer system for functioning efficiently as a separate entity, where I'm me and you're you, is your thinking mind, your analytic thinking mind, your conceptual mind. Now, the thinking mind is very addicting because it gives us so much power. The thinking mind puts us on the moon. The thinking mind does all these. The thinking mind gives us technology. The thinking mind gives us so much stuff. I grew up learning the statement cogito ergo sum. I studied Latin, and it said, I think, therefore I am. Meaning you are an identity with your thinking mind. I am the thinker. Like you wake up in the morning, and from the moment you wake up, you start things like, got to go to the bathroom. Could sleep 5 more minutes. It's warm in that corner of the bed. Got to do the laundry. Wonder if the stove is still hot. Smell coffee. Oh, I'm so sleepy. What was I dreaming about? Got to go to the bathroom. Wonder if the car will start. And on you start. And you just start. It's like trip hammer. Think. And each one is your mind, is your awareness. Just imagine your awareness being the light, and it's like, what do I think? And each thought's coming forth saying, think of me, I'm real, think of me, It's like that story of the drunk looking for the watch, and somebody comes along to help him, and they're under a street lamp, and the fellow's looking, and finally he says, well, where exactly did you lose the watch? And the drunk points up the alley. Well, what are you looking here for? He says, because there's a light here. Well, that's the situation, that you end up studying what your thinking mind can know as an object, and everything that it can't, you say, is irrelevant. Well, it turns out most of what we are ends up in the category of irrelevant. Now, most people spend their entire lives with an identity in channels 1 and 2. And it's as if they have created a room for themselves with their mind of who I am and what is me and what is not me and how it all is. And then they, no matter how miserable the room is, they will never step out of it. I mean, I get images of, I've seen that photograph in the paper of a battered child who's been burned with cigarette ends by the mother and just very badly battered. And the child is in the arms of a police matron who looks very motherly and very loving and very soft. And she's taking the baby away, and there's the mother who looks very, very angry and very bitter and hard. And the baby is screaming for its mother. It's that one. Now, if, as is the case for most people, the need of that separateness to be sure it knows where it is and how it is, and are you my friend or my enemy, and who can I get what from, and is it safe, and where do I go and where don't I go, this map, the map built from the place of my separateness. I am so attached to those identities on channel 1 and 2 that all the information that comes to me from channels 3, 4, 5, and 6, I, in effect, reject. It's all there. You exist on channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, this is the model we're playing with, and if it gets too far out, just assume I took too many drugs in the 60s or something like that. Way out. But assume the information is coming in on every one of these channels as to who you are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But you're so attached to channels 1 and 2 that the other information on these other channels you treat, and what the words you use are irrelevant, or error, or I was out of my mind, or I spaced out, or I'm losing it, or I don't know what just happened, or Like when I first took psilocybin, the mushrooms, and I had these experiences which were, like I experienced that I was perfect. You know, that I was part of the universe and it was all perfect. Well, I know I'm not perfect, says Channel 1 and 2. So what I do in order to preserve my model of myself, which is certainly inadequate and not perfect, is I say of that experience, because I'm a psychologist, you remember, a professor of psychology, I say, interesting hallucination. You see, I have a label. It's called a reductionistic label. It's a label that makes it less than important. It's not real. Because my father used to say, Rich, come down to reality, which meant get a job. Get your act together on this plane. As William James said in 1906, he said, our normal waking consciousness is but one special type of consciousness, whilst all about it, parted from it by the filmiest of screens, there may lay other types of consciousness, We may spend our entire lives without knowing of their existence, but apply the requisite stimulus, and there they are in their completeness. Their existence forbids our premature closing of our accounts with reality. But most of us do. We say, this is reality, and all the rest of that is la-la land. It's playing. It's out there somewhere. But somewhere along the line, for some people in some birth, there is what's called awakening. What awakening is that you acknowledge that channels 3, 4, 5, and 6, specifically 4, 5, and 6, have some reality to them. You allow that they are potentially real, which means that the channels 1 and 2, which previously you were treating as absolutely real, now are only relatively real. So what you have done in that moment is you have done to your social perception what Einstein did to Newtonian physics. As you learn Newtonian physics, I learned Newtonian physics as this is absolute truth. And then Einstein came along and said, depends on where you're standing. And he just shifted it from absolute to relative reality.